health of churches, but sometimes getting buy-in from your team, getting buy-in from your board, and all that good stuff is a challenge. And sometimes it can hold up everything, and that's frustrating because you suffer financially speaking. The church does, and so we are going to tackle that today. Thank you so much. If you have a question about how to talk to your church board, I want you to put it in the chat box, and Aaron, our Rocket Donation Concierge, is going to just chat those questions to me via text so that I can answer those during the course of the webinar. We're going to begin. I'm going to share my screen and talk about how to help your board and your team take digital giving seriously. There is going to be some trivia on here. We're well known for doing some trivia, and we are well known for giving away gifts. So let's just say there might be some Starbucks, there might be some free Rocket donation service. How about that? There might be some other products from the Rocket Company that we will give away. But let's get right to it and talk today about how to get your board and team to take digital giving seriously. Mark your calendar before we forget. March 8th, we're doing another webinar at 4 o'clock, and on that webinar, we're going to talk about 3 donor communication secrets to get your people to actually use digital. It's another question we've gotten a lot about is, hey, how do I get my people to actually use digital? So we're going to cover that and cover 3 secrets. That's March the 8th at 4 o'clock. So stay to the end of the webinar today. We're going to try to keep it right around 30, 45 minutes. Don't minimize us. Don't put us in the background. Just dial in for a second. What we're going to cover is going to be very important. And if you stay to the end, we've got a free coaching guide on how do you talk to your board or team. We're going to give you that, and also some free giveaways. We're going to cover today the why, all right? Because here's the thing. Your team and your board doesn't take digital giving seriously because they don't understand how important it is. And for them to understand how important it is, you do too. And I don't just mean vague notions. I mean specifics, specific benefits. We're going to cover the why. We're going to cover the how. We're going to cover 6 steps on how to talk to your board about digital giving. We're going to talk about 5 board member hang-ups and how to overcome them. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it because we spend time talking to church boards here at the Rocket Company. So we know the challenges, and we know how to overcome and talk to them. Let's start out by discussing why is digital so important, okay? And your board and your team needs to know specific numbers, okay? Digital is important because your donors prefer it. Your donors do not prefer checks or cash, all right? No matter what you think, no matter what your board thinks, no matter what everybody says, your donors prefer to use a card, a debit or credit card. All trends, all financial trends, no matter where you look, shows that right now almost 80%, write that down if you're taking notes, almost 80% of people prefer a debit and credit card. Fastest growing financial trend is a debit card. Why? Because checks are phasing out. Young people don't even know what a routing number is. ACH is a nightmare. It's impossible to set up. It's even harder to cancel. Debit cards growing like wildfire right now. People talk about reaching the young generation. You better have an ability to take debit cards. That's the fastest growing financial trend. So why should it be a priority? Because it's a priority for your donors, right? If you look at preferred payment method from your donors, or if you look at what are people actually using in everyday life. So you've got preferred, but then you've got actual usage, right? This is the preferred. Here's the actual usage. Here's the action. So your donors are backing up this right here, their preferred payment type. They're backing it up when they're out using it during their everyday life at the supermarket, gas station, online shopping, right? Amazon, Black Friday stuff, online travel, discount stores. Look, you're going to see where cash is being used, right? Coffee shops, fast food restaurants, that's it, okay? Dine-in department stores. Cards is getting the action out in society. So the reason why it's got to be a priority for you is because it's a priority for your donors, all right, in their everyday life. In fact, one of the last places people are using checks right now is where? Church, nowhere else. So, and that's not a good sign. You want to play to their habits so that they can automate what's important in their lives, which is giving to the church. Let's talk about the benefits of digital, okay? So we know it's important. We know your people prefer it, and it's not just that they prefer it, they're actually using their cards out in everyday life. But what are the benefits of digital for your church, okay? If you can get your board to buy in, what should it be doing for you all? And this is important because when I talk to churches, and right now the Rocket Donations team, we might interact with 150 churches a month only about digital. Okay, so we've heard it all, we've seen it all, and I would tell you that most churches have a very vague notion as to why they need digital and what it should be doing for them. Vague notions are like, well, young people are using cards, so we know we've got to have it. Vague notions are like, well, we know people don't like writing checks, so we think we need to have it. Those are vague. I'm talking about specifics, right? 80% preferred, that's a specific statistic that you can look at and say, wow, if it's the preferred payment type of 8 out of 10 of my donors, every 8 out of 10, and we've got to make it more of a priority in our financial strategy. But I also want to talk about the benefits, okay? If you make it a priority, what should you be seeing from that priority? And there's two things I want to cover. Number one, more total dollars coming in. You should be seeing more total dollars coming in on a yearly basis if you have digital as a priority. Why? Why will more dollars come in? Well, the answer is because if it's the preferred payment for 80% of your donors and you're making them use checks and cash outside of their habits, they're missing donations. There are some donors who are giving little to zero on an annual basis. We just finished a study with the church, and this particular church was just under 40% in 2015, gave $0, not a dime, and these are donors. So, and this church had little to no digital strategy. They had it, but it was not emphasized whatsoever. The net result, they've got people that are non-participants in giving. So when you put it at the forefront and you make it a priority, you will get more dollars. You'll get people off the sidelines, but you'll also get more budget stability. And by more budget stability, let me tell you what I mean specifically. What I mean is that checks are completely unstable and non-dependable for a financial strategy. And the reason I say that is because every church leader that we talk to will admit that the average donor is missing at least one tithe per year, and that's really conservative. It's actually more like 2, 3, 4 are missing their checks, missing tithe checks. And so that's not budget stability. If those same people are on recurring donations throughout the year, you would recover those tithe dollars. So, and we'll talk more about that. But here's the hard truth that some churches and some church boards don't want to hear is that if you're depending on checks and cash, you are losing money every single year. You're losing money. And I'm going to actually give an illustration, and we're going to do some math, okay? Because I tell this to church boards, and they say, oh, no way. No, yes way. Let me show you how. Let me talk about why. Don't be in denial about it. How many tithe checks donors do you think your typical donor misses in a year? Put that in the chat box if you don't mind. And Aaron, maybe text me 1 or 2 of those. How many tithe checks do you think that your typical donor misses in a year? And I don't have a concrete answer. I'm asking, I want to know. Vacation, sick, somebody dies in the family, bad weather, they forget their checkbook, they're switching banks, they're visiting their college kids, mom's sick at the hospital, life happens. Is it 1 check per year they're missing? Is it 2 checks per year that they're missing? How many tithe checks do you think are being missed on an annual basis? We've got 5, okay, 2, another 5. What else we got, Aaron? Keep them coming. 4. How about that? Those are high, all right? Usually I hear, 2, 2, 3. So we got 5, 2, 5, 4, 2, right? How many tithes do you think the average donor is missing in a year? 3, 10. How about that? How about that? Okay. All right. So we all agree, okay? Your donors are missing a couple tithes per year. So let's just do some math, okay? If you got a TI-83 calculator or a Casio, you got your iPhone, get it out. All right. Look at this. Joe and Jane Smith. The Smiths, they miss 2 tithes per year. Okay. Let's just use that. All right. And that's the low end here. Most of you all are talking 3, 4, 5. So my goodness. All right. So let's just say Joe and Jane Smith, they give $6,000 annually. Okay. They write a monthly check for $500. Last Sunday of the month, they show up at church with their $500 check. And they put it in the offering plate. If they miss 2 tithe checks, how much did the church lose? Put it in the chat box, and we'll send you a Starbucks gift card. First person. Aaron, keep track of it. Text me the name. All right. If they missed 2 tithe checks, the Smiths, how much did the church lose? Right? The answer is they lost $1,000. Jeremy Brand gets some Starbucks coming his way. They lost $1,000 annually. Okay. Some people church boards will go, well, what if they write biweekly checks? Okay, well, then you lost $500 on this particular analogy, right? Then there's 2 time checks, then you're out $500. So let's look at the power of digital, okay? Because church boards automatically think digital means transaction fees, that they automatically think we're going to be losing. So let's look and just pretend that Joe and Jane Smith had their debit card on a recurring donation. How much donations would they have missed if they had their debit card on a recurring donation? The answer, of course, is 0. Let's do some trivia. How about we'll give away 90 days free rocket donation service to the first person? What do you think the annual transaction fees on Joe and Jane Smith's $6,000 are? We got answers flying in here for 90 days free rocket donation service. If you don't want that, we'll give you some Starbucks or something like that. We've got a D coming in. And who is the lucky winner? We got a C coming in. The answer is D, $185. Those are the transaction fees. And so when we talk to churches, okay, and I talk to church boards, here's what they don't understand. When I said earlier emphatically, if you're dependent on checks and cash, you are losing money. It's a losing venture to be dependent on checks and cash. Just so we're all on the same page. $6,000, 12 checks, whether it's a biweekly check, whether it's a monthly check, you're losing $500, you're losing $1,000. Some of you are saying they're missing 4 or 5 checks a year. That means you're losing $2,000 to $4,000. Okay? The annual fees for the whole year, not monthly, not quarterly, but for the year, are $185 on a debit card. So let's compare. They missed 2 time checks, you lost $1,000. On a digital plan, the church incurred $185 cost. Yep, but you recovered $815 for the year. Okay, and looks like Aaron's going to keep track of who got that answer right. But you're going to recover $815. So here's the point, everybody. Listen, when we put a church on a rocket donation digital plan, and they go year-over-year increases, 15%, 20%, 30%, 40%, everybody's saying, where's all the money coming from? This is where the money's coming from right here. If you're recovering, think about this, just with this analogy. If you recovered $815 annually from, every donor in your church, I mean, you're talking tens and tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. With big churches, it can be millions of dollars. So look at the recovery and the potential and the power of digital. That's crucial. So why the math lesson, all right? Why am I so fired up about math? And I am, okay? The reason is because digital is all about the numbers. And what we've found with church boards is that it's all about the numbers for them. It's not about excitement. It's not about being cool. It's not about we have an app, we got this, we got that. They don't care. It's all about the numbers. All your board cares about are the numbers. And so you've got to take into consideration the ROI, right, which is a business term, return on investment, and the financial health that digital giving can offer your church. Here's something I always say to church boards and church leaders when I talk to them. Here's how you know if your digital strategy is working. You know it's working in the middle of the summer. And what do I mean by that? I mean recurring donations are the true X factor for digital donations to actually make a significant impact in the financial life of your church. And a lot of churches we talk to, they've got participation, they've got 20%, they've got 30%, they've got 40% coming in. But when we say, hey, how many recurring donations do you have? They're less than 10%. When we say, hey, take away ACH, it's even less, right? Because the action is on cards. Your digital strategy will show that it's working if it's the middle of summer, everybody's on vacation, and you've got donations rolling in. If you are evaluating your digital strategy and your financial strategy on Christmas Eve, that's not good, all right? You know digital's working and you're reaping the benefits if it's the middle of summer and you've got donations rolling in. So that's why I give the math lesson, because it's crucial that you as the leader and your board know the real numbers of what digital should be accomplishing for you. When your board sees the numbers and they have confidence that digital has huge potential, financially speaking, they'll buy in. But they've got to see it and they've got to know it. The problem is, so often church leaders go to their board and they just say, hey, we know we need it. Hey, young people want it. That won't cut it. You need to give real specific numbers, real specific financial goals. So let's talk about it. 6 important talk tracks, and I've talked about a few of them. I've touched on them, but let's go in depth a little bit more and then look at these board profiles, okay? If you've got a question, put it in the chat box. If you have a question about how to talk to your church board about digital giving, put it in the chat box, and Aaron, if you will text some of those over to me, please. And if you've got a question about digital giving in general, you want to know what makes it really work, put that in too, and we'll talk about it at the end. So let's cover 6 important talk tracks, okay, about digital giving to talk to your board. Step 1, stick to the numbers. I talked about this. Stick to the numbers. You cannot have vague notions about why you need it. You've got to stick to the numbers. Step 2, listen to this. You've got to put the numbers in front of them. And I don't mean you wrote it down on a napkin during a demo and you brought your napkin to the board meeting. That's not what I mean. I mean you need an official printout with the numbers that I just covered from a company. So it's not from you. It's from a company who knows the numbers. And you need to put that in front of the board. Distribute that. Print it out. Take it to your meeting. Email it to them and say, hey, we're having a meeting this Thursday. Please take 5 minutes and read this so we're all on the same page, and print out a copy and bring it with you. Too many church leaders, number one, they don't know the numbers, okay? So they can't stick to the numbers. So you got to know them. But even if you stick to the numbers, a lot of church leaders will then kind of, it's what I call the firing squad, right? You're going to be trying to explain the ROI using the notes that you took. Don't do it. Just print it out and put the numbers in front of them so that there's an authority giving them the numbers, and everybody's looking at the numbers. Because here's the problem. Here's the thing about numbers, is that if you don't see numbers, then they can really intimidate and confuse people. That's the thing about ROI and money, is that when you just talk about it, it's always way more intimidating. But when you look at it, you can't escape what the numbers are saying, and that's important. All right, put the numbers in front of them. Step 3, focus on how fast digital giving will pay for itself. So ROI, something we talk with church leaders about, return on investment, what that means is this. How quickly can this be free for us? That's what that means. How quickly will this pay for itself so that it's not costing us anything? That's what that means. And you've got to focus on this with your church board, because remember, they're concerned about the numbers, and they're concerned about, if it's going to really do anything for you. So that's why you got to talk about, hey, look, it's 80% of our people. It's their preferred. It's 80% of our people. Look at what we're missing on checks. Look at the recovery. Look at this analogy. We could recover $815 or whatever your recovery. Come up with a recovery number and just be conservative and just say, hey, if every donor is missing 2 tithes, and I'm looking at these answers here, and you all are saying 4 or 5 and 6 and 10, right? But let's just be conservative. Take it to your board and say, look, I ran the numbers. If each donor is missing 2 tithes per year at an average of this amount, this is how much money we're losing. If they were on recurring donations, this would be our potential recovery. That's what I'm talking about. And then you've got to talk about step 3, how fast will the service pay for itself? Because there's a service involved. There's a cost involved to do digital giving right? The churches that we talk to that have all these free services, and they're just what I call DIY, right? They're do-it-yourselfers. They're all miserable. I've never once, and we talked about 150 a month, we've never encountered a do-it-yourselfer that's happy and succeeding in digital giving, right? Because you pay for what you get. There's a cost. And your church board's going to want to know, hey, how quickly can we make this pay for itself? Now, let's do another trivia. And how about, Aaron, we'll give away Starbucks and or 90 days free subscription service. How many total donations do you think you need each month to make Rocket Donations free and pay for itself? How many donations, look for the first one, Aaron, after cost of service, right? After the cost for Rocket Donations, after the bank fee, after everything, how much do you think you need to pay for Rocket Donations? We got an A, $250. What else we got coming in here? Who gave me the first B number? Who gave us the first B number, Aaron? The answer is B. With some incentives, it's often C as well. Jeffrey Chestnut. Starbucks coming your way, 90 days free service, whatever you want. All right, appreciate your participation. I didn't want to make it 125, right? Because then everybody would be like, oh, he's going to put the lowest price. I made 150. With some incentives, it is 125 at times. But the point is this, okay? The point is this. Listen, can your church afford an extra $150 a month, right? Yes, okay? And that's not the cost for rocket donations. What I'm saying is if you get $150 of donations and you take out the cost for the digital service, you take out bank fees, you take out everything, $150, it's paid for. So what I ask church boards is I say, do you think that your digital giving platform can get one donation of $150? That's not per donation. I'm saying if I come to your church this Sunday and I give you $150 and swipe my card, your entire digital giving platform is covered for the entire month. Cost of service, bank fees, it's covered. So that's what I mean. So step 3, you've got to focus on how fast will digital giving pay for itself. Because if you can get your board to buy in and see the potential, they're going to want to do it, but then they're going to want to know, hey, how quick can we make this thing pay for itself, ROI. All right, step 4, emphasize recurring donations. And we could do a whole webinar on this. I talked more about it a second ago, but I'm just telling you, recurring donations is the absolute X factor for your digital giving strategy. I mean, if you don't have, let me put it this way, if you don't have recurring donations and you've just got participation, you are not reaping the benefits of digital, period. All right, you're doing nothing different than check. What's the difference between me writing 12 checks a year and forgetting 2 and me doing a bunch of one-time donations on my debit or credit card? There's no difference. So that's why we talk to churches, and I would say 60% of churches we talk to, maybe more, they're on average 20-40% participation, but less than 10% recurring. Net result, they're miserable because they've gotten their people addicted to making one-time digital donations, which is not what you want. It's not sustainable, and that's why we're on the phone with all these churches. They've been on that route 12, 24 months now, and it was exciting when they first launched it because people started using it, right? But now nobody's on a recurring donation, and so they're not really reaping any benefits. You need to emphasize to your church board the importance of recurring donations and tell them, I'm not just looking to open up another channel to give. I want people on recurring donations. If we could just get and come up with a number, come up with a recurring donation number that you want to achieve. Hey, if we could just get $4,000 a month on recurring donations, think about how that would change the game for us. And I think it's possible with this system. So that is why recurring donations are huge. Again, I said earlier, write this down if you didn't. The test of your digital giving is the middle of summer. It's not Christmas Eve. Okay, it's the middle of summer. That's how important recurring donations are. Let me tell you this, and this is when I talk about, and I'll say more about it in a minute, when it comes to how important it is to choose a partner. Getting participation on digital is easy. I mean, it's a layup. It's a free throw, granny style, okay? Getting your people to participate on digital giving is so easy. Okay, because if it's the preferred payment method for 80% of people, I mean, come on, if you offer digital giving, it's going to get used. What's hard, all right, is recurring donations. That's the true test. That's hard. And we know the secrets to get recurring donations. We do. We've been coaching churches for over a decade, 10,000 churches now. We know how to get recurring donations. What I'm telling you is that the layup and the granny style free throw is just getting some action on digital. Anybody could do that with their eyes closed, okay? What is really the test of whether it's going to work is recurring. And what I'm telling you when you talk to your board is you've got to talk about the importance of recurring donations, because then they're going to know that you're focused on actually getting a result and not just getting activity. There's a difference between activity and results. There's a big difference there. So that's step 4. Step 5, don't let your board turn you into a vendor shopper, okay? This is huge. Don't let them turn you into a vendor. You know what a vendor shopper is? That's when your church board says, hey, go get 3 quotes. It's all the same. Just go get 3 quotes and bring them in here. We're going to choose the cheapest one. That's a vendor shopper. That's a recipe for absolute disaster. And let me tell you why it's a recipe for disaster. The reason why is because digital giving providers, and we've done a study and we've looked at upwards of 20, they all offer the very comparable pricing, right? The features and the pricing, the differences are so minimal compared to what you are trying to accomplish. Do not become a vendor shopper. Vendor shoppers always, almost always, end up with buyer's remorse down the road. because they just went out, they found the cheapest vendor they could, they partnered up, and the reason why they bought the cheapest vendor is because the pressure of the church board, right? Go find the cheapest one and sign up. That's a recipe for, and so don't let them turn you into a vendor shopper. Tell them, hey, we don't need to go shop vendors, guys. We've looked, they're all within about, say, 40 to 100 bucks a month of each other. It's all the same. We need a partner, and that's the word that you need to use, partner, because here's the deal, everybody. If digital giving is that important as we're all saying it is, okay, I mean, I'm looking at these texts right here, and I'm shocked that you all are saying you think the average donor is missing 3, 4, 5. The most common number was 4s and 5s, okay? That's shocking. That is a ton of money that you are missing to do ministry, a ton. It's upsetting. So if that's how important it is, and you're talking about you need to recover tens of thousands of dollars, right? Then you want to find a partner to recover tens of thousands of dollars, not a vendor. And so a lot of churches, an effort to save 30 bucks a month, 40 bucks a month, right? 400 bucks annually, will just choose the cheapest vendor out there. You need to talk to your board and say, guys, it's 80% of our people prefer to use cards. That's a big number. Here's my conservative number on how much I think we're missing right now if our average donor misses 2. Show them that number. We need to make sure that we have the right direction and the right partner to get this done. Because 6, 12 months from now, our operating budget could be drastically different if we've got the right partner. So do not let them turn you into a vendor shopper. It is a recipe for disaster. All right? Step 6. Don't let everybody get paralysis by analysis. And I'm seeing some of these questions come through, so I'm going to answer these at the end, okay? I've got them. We're getting close to the end. I'm trying to move quick, respect everybody's time. Hey, if you're enjoying this webinar, just put a 1 in the box if you're getting some value. We try to deliver value to you all. If you're getting value from today, put a 1 in the chat box. That'd be great. Step 6, don't let everybody get paralysis by analysis, okay? Here's the thing about digital. It has the appearance of being really complex, right? Because it's digital, it's technology, it's payment processing fees, it's transaction fees. There's 5 types of credit cards, and there's text to give, and there's giving online. There's all this stuff. And so it feels complex, but it's actually really not complex at all, okay? Is it complex for your people to pull out a debit and credit card every single day of their lives at the grocery store, at the gas pump, on Amazon, tuition, school signups, sports signups, checking out of the grocery, going to Target? Is that complex for your people? No. They get the card out, and they swipe it, and they're done. Digital giving is not complex. You need 2 things. You need a platform where your people can use their card online to give to your church. And you need a communication strategy to talk to your donors so they will actually go online and do that. So you don't keep it hidden, and they know that they need to be using it and using it on a recurring basis. The numbers are not complex. Here's the only numbers that your board, here's the big picture numbers. It's the preferred payment type for 80% of people. Everybody, you tell your church board, it's the preferred payment type for 80% of our people. Nobody's using checks and cash in everyday life. We all know this, okay? So big picture, we get it. We've got to have this. Okay, what's the potential recovery? And work that number. Hey, if our donors are missing 1 to 2 per year, here's what we're losing. If we can get this recovered through recurring donations, here's what we're going to gain. And then the third number is just the cost. Here's what it costs to do it and accomplish the mission. So do not let paralysis come by analysis, okay? And that happens all the time. I mean, you all know that. I'm preaching to the choir. You all know that boards get hung up for nothing, right? They do nothing for the sake of nothing. That's why I tell church boards. Don't just do nothing for the sake of nothing. Don't not take action for the purpose of just not taking action, right? So keep it simple, stick to the big numbers, and move ahead. Let's just review real quick, and then I want to talk about some profiles, and maybe you all will get a chuckle out of this, okay? But 6 steps to talk to your church board. Number 1, stick to the numbers, which means you got to know them, okay? Number 2, put the numbers in front of them. I don't want to see any napkins going into board meetings. I don't want to see any scribbled notes on your notepad or inside your Bible front cover or on your iPhone, right? Put the numbers in front of them. An official printout from a company that you trust that knows the numbers, and you can all look at it together. Just like you would look at the bank statements, just like you would look at your budget, right? Do the same thing with digital. You guys are not looking at that on napkins and iPhones. Put the numbers in front of them. Number 3, focus on how fast it'll pay for itself, right? Your church boards need to understand Look, this is not a big deal. We're talking about if we get one donation of $150, it's paid for. I mean, come on, let's go. Number 4, emphasize recurring donations. And when you do that, your board will know that, again, there's a specific goal. There's something specific that you are trying to accomplish, all right? Number 5, don't let them turn you into a vendor shopper. Hey, listen, board members, I know that we want to try to minimize our costs, but look at what we're missing right now in donations. I just feel like it's a lot bigger picture than just signing up with some random vendor because we can save 20 bucks a month. I want a partner who knows how to help us accomplish step 4, which is recurring donations. So can we just find a partner and just agree that that's what we need? Number 6, don't let your board get paralysis by analysis. And I tell church leaders, I had one ask me this week, how do I not let them get paralysis by analysis? And one of the things you can do is just tell them. Just say, look, this is really simple. Everybody's using debit and credit cards. We need a digital platform. We need a communication strategy. And it's $100 a month, whatever the cost is. Let's go. What are we waiting for? You know, you all are not launching a mission to Mars with digital giving. Some churches think they are, and some churches have taken that route. They've overcomplicated it, but it's really simple. And I think that that's something worth considering too, everybody. Keeping your digital giving strategy simple. That's why you don't need 10,000 features. We've got churches that have every feature under the sun, and they've got 30% participation and less than 5% recurring because all they've done is talk about features and they've not talked about anything else. So don't go that route either. But those are the 6 steps, okay? Stick to the numbers, put it in front of them, emphasize ROI, emphasize recurring donations, don't be a vendor shopper, and don't do nothing for the sake of nothing, all right? 5 board member profiles and how to overcome their fears, all right? This is like behind the curtain. When the Rocket Company, and we do all the time, talk to church boards, and we consult with them. This is what we say to board members, all right? So we've got 5 board profiles, and I hope you all can chuckle, all right? We chuckle about it. We love church boards, all right? We know at the end of the day, church boards and church leadership teams, even though they can get paralysis by analysis, at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to steward the money that God's given them, and we get it, and kudos to you for doing that. But we recognize that things can get hung up in church boards and church teams and committees and on and on and on and on. So we created 5 profiles that we encounter all the time, and we're going to talk about what their fears are, so you kind of know like what they're thinking, and then we're going to talk about how to overcome those, what to say to them, okay? Here's number 1. This is Fiscal Fred. Maybe you have a Fiscal Fred on your team or on your board. This is Fiscal Fred. He's an expert, quote unquote, the numbers, right? He knows the bank. I've probably heard this 10 times last month. Oh, we know all about the bank's processing fees, right? Like it's a secret, right? That's right. The banks want to make money by processing payments. It's not a secret. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing evil about it. Banks that's one of the ways they make money, okay? But this is what Fiscal Fred says. Oh, he knows the secrets about it. He'll be the first to tell you how far short you are on the budget, but he'll also be the first to tell you that something like this, which will help you get more money, is too expensive, all right? He thinks you should go out and get 5 competitive quotes and thinks you should try to save 1% on processing by going and getting those quotes. So you'll spend 4 hours in demos to save 1% on processing. Guess what 1% of $500,000 is? $5,000. Big deal, right? Big deal. You're going to save 1% on processing on $500,000. You're going to save a little bit of cash when you are losing tens of thousands every year on checks. Big picture, everybody stay big picture. Okay, so Fiscal Fred, all right, he's hung up on the numbers. So how do you overcome Fiscal Fred? You compare large potential gain to small cost, like I just did, right? You've got to talk about, but Fred, here's the really big potential. Look at how much we're missing on this conservative model. I ran it as if donors are going to miss 1 or 2 tithes per year. Fred, they're missing 3 or 4, right? And I'll tell you this, everybody, this is insider information. The Rocket Company, we finished another study in 2015 with the church, and this kind of supports all the numbers that you all put in here. But this church, 78% of their entire donor base could not sustain back-to-back-to-back giving months, meaning only 25% of their church could give every single quarter. The average church member was missing at least 1 donation per quarter, right, which is going to put you right at the 4 number that everybody talked about and put in there. So Fiscal Fred, you talk about large potential gain. Fred, here's the big picture compared to small cost. I want the right partner, Fiscal Fred. I don't want to just go out and try to save a percent. We need to do it right. Fred, what's at stake is the big, big potential gain here, and look at how much we're losing. So that's how you address fiscal Fred. Let's talk about scared Susan, all right? Scared Susan, she thinks checks are just fine. Well, I just think they're just fine. We've been doing it like this for years, so why change? Scared Susan doesn't trust, quote unquote, those credit card companies. Susan's afraid the website's going to crash and people are going to have their identities stolen and everybody's going to leave the church. Okay, that's scared Susan. And what's funny about some of these profiles, besides the fact that we all know them, is when we say things like I don't trust the credit card companies, those are the same churches that are using random payment processors instead of partnering with an actual credible company. Those are the ones that are working with just random payment processing companies that they don't know anything about, that are based in Utah, California. Who knows where they're based. They've never met them. They don't know anything about them except people swipe their cards at the front desk, all right? So that's what's kind of funny about it. But here's how to overcome scared Susan, who's just pretty much scared of everything. You got to talk about finding the right partner, okay? You got to talk about, hey, listen, Susan, this is a company that we know. This is a company that, meets our standards for quality. They are whatever's important to you, okay? They're a Christian company. They have tons of churches that they service. They're specialized in this area. They actually have a banking institution. That's something I always say to scared Susan. Hey, Susan, it's not the actual technology taking payments. There's actually a bank behind it. So payments are secure and they're insured and they don't just randomly disappear, right? Hey, Susan, here's another thing I say to Susan. Hey, Susan, people are using their credit cards all over the place, right? People trust the gas pump. They trust the grocery store. They trust Target, even though Target had an issue. They trust Amazon, right? They trust everywhere else online. So why would we think this is going to work any different? Again, 80% of people prefer cards. So I'm going to overcome scared Susan by just saying, hey, look, I've found the right partner. They've got a banking institution behind them. They're a reputable company. They service lots of churches. And you're going to talk about, that's why a partner is huge. That's why when you just have a random vendor, this is where scared Susan cannot get over it, because you just found a random vendor out there. So find a partner. Here's a third one, do-it-yourself Dan. This is my personal favorite. I love do-it-yourself Dans, okay? Do-it-yourself Dan is the one that says, hey, we'll just use PayPal and do this ourselves. And do-it-yourself Dan says that he's going to help with it. He's going to write giving emails. He's going to write giving talks. He's going to create slides for Sunday morning for visuals. He's going to write letters and other resources. No problem. Here's the thing. Here's how to overcome do-it-yourself Dan. You've got to emphasize the importance of doing it for the long term, okay? Here's the deal. Church leaders, right, pastors, associate pastors, executive pastors, other church leaders, they do not have time to execute a digital giving strategy. They just don't, and they know it. Oftentimes, there will be somebody in the leadership team or on the board who will just be like, well, I'll do it for you. And we all know that will not happen, okay? The churches that we interact with, what happens, if they do anything at all, it will sustain for about 90 days, and then that's it, okay? Then you're done. Then that's all you'll get from Do-It-Yourself Dan. Why? Because he's got a life, and doing digital and writing these resources and communicating with donors is hard work. It takes a lot of hard work to do. And so that's why it won't be sustainable with a do-it-yourselfer. So you need to emphasize to Do-It-Yourself Dan, hey, look, I really appreciate your willingness to do this, but we really need something that's sustainable for the long term, because as you know, I don't have time to do this, and I know that you're willing to do it, but I want to think 6 months out, 12 months out, 24 months out, and not just the next 90 days, especially not just to save $100 a month, $1,000 a year, when we're trying to recover tens of thousands of dollars per year, right? Big potential gain to small cost. Do-it-yourself Dan, not sustainable do-it-yourself Dan. You're not going to do it yourself beyond 90 days. We all know it. So let's not even go down that road and then be at square one again here in just a few months. Little Effort Linda. It's another church profile that we see, church board, okay, or a team or whatever. Little Effort Linda is convinced that starting or improving, if you have a current digital provider, starting is going to take hours and hours of time. It's a time thing, right? It's like, oh, I know we should probably do it, but I just don't think that we can spend the time. Maybe Linda oversees the Treasury Department. Maybe it's Bob who oversees a CPA that does the books or whatever. And the feeling is this is just going to take forever, and it's not worth it. right? And Little Effort Linda's only on board only if it's completely seamless with your current CRM, which is code for saying, if it doesn't take any work, I'll do it. If it takes work, I'm out. Okay, here's how to overcome Little Effort Linda and whoever else it might be. You got to talk about how digital giving is all about the donor. It's not about you all. And that's crucial. Think about that for a second. We talk to so many churches, and when we talk and look at their digital giving strategy, churches that are saying, help us, we're dying on the vine, digitally speaking, okay? One of the most common things that we see is that their digital strategy is all about the church leadership. The decisions were made, the platform was made, the cost was made with just the board in mind to make it easy for them. It will not get used by your donors if it's only easy for you all. And so you've got to put your donor first and foremost at the forefront of your mind. That's how you decide how to make it easy for your people to donate more money to do more ministry. So you've got to talk about, hey, look, I know we need it to be easy for us, but we really got to make sure it's easy for the donors. So let's put ourselves second. And then you got to talk about return on effort, right? ROE. And here's the thing. Technology is so simple. There is really no platform out there that takes hours and hours of time. It's just not true. But you will have to invest some effort. How much? For some churches, it's less than 10 minutes a week. For some churches, it's less than 30 minutes a week. It's not much, all right? But it's worth the effort because you are recovering tens of thousands of dollars. If you are looking for a digital giving strategy that will get people on recurring donations and recover donations for you, recover all the ones that you're missing, but you don't want to put any effort in, don't even start down the road because it won't work. It doesn't exist. There is no solution out there that requires no work. And we talk to churches all the time that want the result, right, but don't want to put in the effort. It just doesn't happen that way. It's not the way that it works. So you need to overcome the little effort mindset by just talking about the donor and talking about return on effort, which is crucial. Last one, Back to the Future Bobby, another personal favorite, okay? Back to the Future Bobby is an expert in technology, all right? Sometimes Back to the Future Bobby actually works in technology. They're a web designer. They're a, you name it, programmer, et cetera, et cetera. Back to the Future Bobby is going to talk about young people a lot. I know exactly what young people need. He thinks that digital is all about the young people, which is not, by the way. Upper end of ages 70 are using digital. Guess why you don't want to base your strategy? This is a tangent. Guess why you don't want to base your strategy on young people? Well, number one, because they have the smallest amount of money, so you don't want to drive your entire digital strategy, which, as we all know from this webinar, is your digital strategy is huge. So don't drive your digital through a segment that has the least amount of money and through a segment who is the least likely to make a recurring donation, right? Just a little tangent there, a little tidbit, a little something. All right, but Back to the Future Bobby, he's asking about features too. You're going to hear this from Bobby. He's going to have a quiz for you. Does it have text to give? Does it have this feature? Does it have this feature? We've got to have these features to reach the young people. Okay, that's Back to the Future Bobby. How to overcome Back to the Future Bobby, because Back to the Future Bobby will distract your digital strategy and send you down a rabbit trail like none other. I was interacting with a church 2 weeks ago, and there was a church leader who wanted to have a kiosk in the back of the youth room to take Google Pay and Apple Pay payments. Google Pay and Apple Pay are being used by like nobody in the United States. And I mean like less than 0.3%, statistically speaking, are even using those things. And the entire strategy was going to be driven by putting the kiosk in the youth room with an emphasis on Google Pay and Apple Pay. That is Back to the Future Bobby. They will distract your digital strategy like crazy, and you will miss the lion's share of the action. The lion's share of the action, Back to the Future Bobby, is credit and debit cards. The preferred method is a credit and debit card for 80% of your people. Where are they using credit and debit cards? Are they using them through all these little auxiliary features? No, they're using them online, on web browsers. They're using them in those ways. So with Back to the Future Bobby, you're going to emphasize that, but you're also going to emphasize the importance of simplicity, right? Here's the thing about the features. If you become feature addicted, you will not get recurring donations. I promise, right? That's the ironic thing about features. If you drive your strategy because it's got a particular feature, you are, whether you know it or not, going to drive your strategy toward one-time donations and not recurring donations. Because if you love the feature, you're going to talk about the feature, right? And your people are going to go and they're going to use that feature, and they're not going to use a recurring donation. So that's what you want to talk about with Back to the Future Bobby. Sorry, my calendar just popped up on me. Here we go. I'm back in the game. So that's how you overcome Bobby. You got to talk about simplicity, and you got to talk about recurring donations. If you got 10 features, you're going to send your people 10 different ways. And if you got a feature-heavy focus, you won't get recurring donations. So that's how to talk to him. So I hope that helps on Back to the Future Bobby. Listen, don't overcomplicate digital. The potential is huge. It's huge. I mean, just working the numbers earlier today, I want you to put a 1 in the chat box if you know digital giving is huge. If you see this has huge potential, all right, because it does. What do you need? You need easy-to-use technology and donor communication resources, right? So every church asks us, they see the numbers, and they say, how do we do it? These are churches that either don't have it at all, or they're like far down the road, and they're totally frustrated because they're not seeing any benefits. They're like, what are we missing? There's 2 crucial pieces. One is the technology, which is just simply how do your donors give, and the other is donor communication resources, right? Talking to your donors, and not just talking to them, hey, you can give online now, but talking to them with a specific emphasis on recurring donations and talking to your donors through multiple channels, right? Most churches only talk about giving where? The giving plate, right? They only talk about giving in the middle of summer on Christmas Eve when they need it the most. They only talk about it through one channel. Not only do you have to communicate about recurring donations, but you've got to communicate through multiple channels, not just one. So don't overcomplicate digital. Hey, listen, thank you so much. I'm going to answer questions right now, so don't go anywhere if you got a question. Okay, I'm going to answer every one that Aaron sent me. If you're going to send me more, Aaron, that's great. Please book an appointment. If you want to learn more about Rocket Donations, we do have a digital giving solution that accomplishes the recovery that I mentioned earlier. We've got 6 for 6 of our last churches that we've launched have recovered the annual cost 2 to 6 times over their first 30 days. The recovery and the potential is huge, and we've got a system to do it. You can see a demo of that system. It takes 15, 20 minutes. You can book a time convenient for your schedule. You can see the link on there to do that. All right, I'm answering questions. Here we go. And there's any questions a good one. Fastball them in. Fastball them in. All right. Let's see. Somebody asked, how do you respond to questions about the cost of digital giving? I covered that. I feel like I did. If I didn't, you can put it in again. Are people signing up for auto withdrawal? I'm assuming you're asking about ACH and things like that. No. Well, yes and no. Okay. Here's the thing about ACH. It's old school. It's old hat. It's going out of style really fast. Right now, ACH represents less than 15%. Okay. Let that sink in. Less than 15% of transactions in the United States. 80%, 80 approximately. It's like 78 to be exact from the chart I showed you earlier. Let's just call it 80 is on debit and credit cards. ACH, and I mentioned earlier why debit cards are growing so fast is because ACH is just, it's phasing out. Young people don't even know what a routing number is. Ask a young person what a routing number is, and I mean anybody under the age of 35, they're going to be like, huh? They don't know what a routing number is. ACH is hard to set up. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to cancel. You have to like fax something in to an office somewhere. ACH is, here's the thing about ACH too that I want to say that's really important. Listen to this very, very closely. If you emphasize ACH at all, and I mean for some churches, if you even mention it from up front, your people will feel guilty about using their cards and won't use their cards, okay? That is very important to understand. That's an insider secret right there. Churches that even mention ACH, what happens is they usually mention it either explicitly or implicitly. Hey, if you just do auto withdrawal, we can save a % or whatever. Nobody is going to use their cards with that kind of mentality because we're all going to feel like, oh, well, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be doing this. The problem is ACH at best is 15% of action. So even if you bat 1,000 and you knock it out of the park, you're trying to get a trend that represents 15% of transactions, right? Focus, remember, digital is all about, that's where people get paralysis by analysis. The big number is 80% is on cards. Design your whole strategy around that, and you will come out light years ahead of the other route. I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, put a new one in there. Let's see. If 50% of givers, here's a question. If 50% of givers do not miss a check, should we encourage them to give online or continue with the check? Hey, have them continue with the check or make it their preference. Here's the point. You will not lose on digital giving. So a lot of times the question is like, well, if they're given a check and they do it 12 times a year, should we still put them on digital? They can or they can't. It doesn't really matter. The point is that even if they go on digital, even if they all said, hey, we're going to make it easy on ourselves and we're going to go on a recurring donation, you're still going to be so far ahead from getting participation and check recovery through the illustration I mentioned earlier. You'll just be so far ahead it won't matter. So the answer to that question is if somebody's given a check faithfully 12 times a year and they don't miss a check, hey, they can keep writing checks if they want, but just know if you roll out digital, like I said, you're going to get action. There's going to be a lot of check writers. Even if they're 12 times a year faithful, they're going to go, thank goodness, I've been waiting for you to do this because this is the only place that I write checks. And they're going to go on a recurring debit card, and that's okay, all right? Board members, that's okay. You're just not going to lose money. You're still going to be way far ahead from recovery. I'm moving on. 15% of givers give 63% of income. This would be $9,000 in fees. Should we encourage those givers to continue with current giving? I know the value is helping the 85% give more consistently as well as the new givers. I'm going to have to read that question like 2 or 3 times. There's a lot of numbers and percents in there. I'm going to come back to that one, okay? But I will answer it. And if there's a name on that one, Aaron, if you could get that name for me, that would be great. 15% of givers give 63% of income. Maybe I'll email that person so I can dial in on that. Here's a question. How does our cost compare to PayPal? Good question. PayPal's free. And I said earlier, if a strategy is free, it's free for a reason. And church boards don't want to believe that, right? Remember, do-it-yourself Dan? This is PayPal right here. This is Mr. PayPal, okay? Well, let's just use PayPal and do it ourselves. Look, there's 2 costs for digital, okay? Write this down. The first cost is the cost for service. Like you are paying a company for the technology and, in our case, the communication resources that are included. That's not the case with everybody else. It's the case with us. So that's the first cost, the cost for service. PayPal, I guess you get technology. It's not great. It's kind of from like 1995. I mean, PayPal is not as popular as it used to be, as you might know. Also, PayPal is associated with low budget, right? Reputable companies, reputable churches typically don't have a PayPal link, okay? When you see a PayPal link, it's a red flag to the average consumer because it's associated with low budget, okay? So I'm just telling you, it won't get as much action. My team, and I'm in charge of Rocket Donations team, 150 churches a month. I have never met a church on PayPal above 25% participation, ever. So it will not get usage. I believe it's associated with low budget. People don't want to use it. It's also old school, right? It was when you bought something on eBay, which everybody's using Amazon now. So that's kind of my thoughts on PayPal. So again, the 2 costs that you're going to have with any company that I believe you should go with is the cost for service, what you get, technology, and with us, you get technology and resources, plug and play. And the second cost is the banking costs, right? Transaction fees, that kind of stuff. So those are the 2 costs. So how does our cost compare to PayPal? We're more expensive. We have a cost, and PayPal does not. PayPal takes 2%. Hey, they're on a sliding scale. The industry average, everybody, is 2.99 plus 30 cents. That is the industry average in payment processing. Are there, nonprofit, brothers and sisters who will offer 1%? Well, sure. But you will always sacrifice technology and definitely sacrifice strategy and communication resources. Again, churches that are trying to shave off 1% are missing the big picture. They're missing the big picture. It's about finding a partner, right? When people are asking questions about PayPal and saving 1%, those are vendor shoppers, all right? You're a vendor shopper. You're looking for a cheap vendor. And if you find one, you're not going to get out of it what you want and what you need to recover the donations. Remember, it's tens of thousands of dollars. You run the number for your church. That's what's at stake. And so if you want to roll with PayPal and eBay, go for it. But I'm just telling you, it's not going to get the results that you want. Another question came in. How do we compare to PushPay? We get this question every webinar. I'm convinced it's a PushPay person, which is great. We're glad you're here. I'm kidding, kind of. Listen, we actually had, I did a do-it-yourself Dan webinar about a month ago, and I could hear their phones snapping on the demo. They were going to do it themselves. They were snapping pictures of our communication resources, and we could hear the phone just snapping. So that was funny. Hey, PushPay, how do we differ from them? We are very comparable in features. We are very comparable in pricing. We actually are less than them in some cases, depending on if you go with their super, super sweet deluxe program. That's $149. Ours is half of that, actually less with our current incentive program. So very comparable in features, very competitive in pricing, and where we will unashamedly say to PushPay, we've got something you don't, and that is communication resources. I mentioned something earlier, and I talked about it with Back to the Future Bobby. So if you ask that question, maybe you're Back to the Future Bobby. But digital is not about the features first and foremost. Making digital work is about your strategy and your communication first and foremost. And that is, without question, the most important X factor for churches to make digital giving work is communication to donors. And churches always ask us, how do we do it? And we tell them, and they say, we don't have time for that. And we say, hey, we know you don't have time for it. That's why we're going to do it for you. And we give them the resources. The guy said, I'm not from PushPay. Good. Hey, I was just kidding. But we get that question every single time. They're the 800-pound gorilla in the space. They're a huge, huge software company. And I mean massive. They're owned by an even bigger software company. They are feature focused and price focused. They're going to they're going to have their standard retail pricing, and then they say it's all custom pricing. So when you get on there, they're going to just give you a low pitch just to get you on board, and they're going to sell you on features, and they're going to sell you on price. It's pretty much that simple, which anybody can do. There's lots of other companies that do that same thing. We're kind of the opposite, right? We believe features are important, but we believe that the real X factor is simplicity. You actually have a goal and communication. I'll tell you this right now. We got lots of churches that we take from PushPay and lots of other feature-heavy companies, okay? And they're at 30 to 40% participation. They're getting action for all the features, less than 10% recurring, less than 5% recurring. They're miserable because now they're just managing technology. And we will get recurring donations for them on our platform so fast that it is open eyes and drop jaws, and they're like, this is unbelievable. Why were we not able to do this before? And the answer is not because they didn't have the right features, but because they didn't have communication strategies. And PushPay is a software company. We're the opposite. We've been a church space leader for over a decade, 10,000 churches. We know how to make digital giving work. So there is my defense of why you should go with us and not PushPay. And it's not based on features or numbers. It's based on goals and communication and objectives and truly understanding the space. I'm going to take one last question, and I'm going to cut out here because it's been an hour. I want to respect your all's time. Let's see. There is a missions organization wanting to know if we're suited for them or only churches. We do mission organizations. It's not optimized for mission organizations. Thanks for the question. Because a lot of our communication resources are geared to churches. You could certainly repurpose them. It's not like they're going to be totally irrelevant. But you're probably not going to have a giving plate talk, but you may be able to revamp some of the actual resources that we give you and use them through other channels. So that's the way missions organizations works. We're not approved for international service. We don't do banking in England or Bermuda or Europe or Philippines or anything like that. It's all U.S. only. PCI compliant. Yes, our banking host is PCI compliant. I just saw that question too. Of course. So it's been an hour. Thank you so much. I hope that you will book an appointment with us to learn more about Rocket Donations and see our solution in particular. We will get prizes to those who won. If you want the free resource, please get in contact with us, and/or Aaron will send it out directly to the list as well, so you can have that. The demo takes 15-20 minutes. I'll show you our solution, how we're getting results. We have right now in February a 50% off our actual service for a year, for 12 months, 50% off. So that will take us to about 1/3 of the cost of PushPay for perspective. All right, hope you'll book it. I look forward to seeing you on it. I promise that I will be just as fiery, and my teammates will be just as fiery and fired up as I am on right now on this webinar when you get on that call. And we love good questions, so we look forward to seeing you on there. Thank you so much for your time.